Debbie, welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hello, Dr. Brown. How are you?
Just fine, thank you.
Hey, about a month and a half ago, you did a little teaching about the Festival of Tabernacles, or maybe the Jewish New Year, that hasn't been taught historically that Jesus would come back, or that it would start the new millennium, I believe. Is that right?
I'm not sure exactly what you'd be referring to. I mean, we often go through the history of the biblical calendar, the high holy days, and the prophetic meaning. We know that Passover finds its fulfillment in Messiah's crucifixion, first fruits in his resurrection, Pentecost, Shavuot, the outpouring of the Spirit, and then that the final fulfillment of the Feast of Trumpets will be his return. Final fulfillment of Day of Atonement will be the national cleansing of Israel. Final fulfillment of Tabernacles will be the nations of the world streaming to Jerusalem to worship the God of Israel. The question is, he literally died at the time of Passover and fulfilled these other prophecies on schedule. Will he literally return at that time of the year, the first day of the seventh month, which in Jewish tradition is Rosh Hashanah, the new year? That's the question. So, Debbie, did my little explanation about what I understand, did that help sharpen the question you wanted to ask?
It did, but I remember it was the show that you were doing, Internet Myth, and where Jesus folded the hanky, in the tomb. And so you had said something about Jesus coming back, and you did tell me what I needed to know. It's a progression that we can follow since we see that Jesus came back. Died at Passover.
Right. And what clues us in on the rest, Debbie, and then I'll get back to the myth I think that you're talking about. That, in fact, I'm going to have Kai and Chris. Let's see if you can research this on the fly. No one knows the day or the hour, and the Feast of Trumpets. See what you come up with online, guys, and send me no one knows the day or the hour and the Feast of Trumpets. That's the myth thing that we'll get into in a moment. But the reason that we think this way, in terms of, okay, we have the spring feasts that had to do with his death and resurrection and the outpouring of the Spirit at Pentecost. Now we have the fall feast. It would be logical that they are for the rest of his mission. But if you think of it, Matthew 24, 1 Corinthians 15, 1 Thessalonians 4, the Messiah comes back with the sound of the trumpet blast. Well, wow, that seems to tie in directly with this idea of the coming in conjunction with Feast of Trumpets. And then what happens with that is cleansing for Israel. So the next event, Day of Atonement, and then what follows that is the nations coming to Jerusalem to worship God, the survivors of the nations that attacked Jerusalem. So where do you have that? Zechariah 12, his return. Zechariah 13, national cleansing for Israel. Zechariah 14, the survivors of the nations that attacked Jerusalem coming to worship. So you have that progression there. The problem is that some have thought, well, that's literally when he's coming, that's specifically the time when he's coming, in which case we would know the day, right? Once we figured out it's this year, that, this must be the year, then we would know that specific day. All right, so you got videos our guys have found, but not specific websites. Rosh Hashanah and its hidden secret. No man knows the day or the hour. So here's the argument, Debbie, and I reject this. This is, according to everything I know, an internet myth, that Jesus was not saying that we wouldn't know the day or the hour, but that he was saying that it's just like Rosh Hashanah when you don't know the day or the hour, meaning because that's the one feast that falls on the first day of the month, and the first day of the month is only confirmed when you have witnesses seeing the new moon, and therefore you can't exactly know which day it's going to be. That's all that means. That Jesus didn't really mean you won't know the day or the hour. What he meant was it's just going to be like the Feast of Trumpets, which in Jewish tradition becomes the New Year. So it's an interesting concept, I'd never heard it before I heard it online. So that makes you suspicious first. You're like, there we go. There's a website. Good job, boss. See, I knew they could do it. Day or hour is only code for the Day of Trumpets and not a limit on knowing when. A more recent interpretation gaining popularity comes from the Messianic and Hebrew Roots movement. It correctly teaches how we know from other passages that Jesus comes for the rapture on the last trumpet or the seventh trumpet or the Day of Trumpets. This is the same day known today in Judaism as Rosh Hashanah, or in the Bible, Yom Teruah. The Day of Trumpets is unique among the holidays in the Bible, and that it's the only one which arrives on the first day of the Hebrew lunar month. The difficulty with a feast celebration coming on that day is that it may follow the 29th or the 30th of the previous month, depending on whether the moon is sighted on the 29th or not. For this reason is supposedly even referred to as the feast that no man knows the day or the hour, or the hidden feast. Given this, one Hebrew Roots teacher compared Jesus' day or hour statement to someone in America saying, I'm not telling you when I'm showing up, but gobble, 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 inferring Turkey Day or Feast of Thanksgiving. All right, so that website lays it out, obviously doesn't agree with it. So here's the problem, Debbie. I had been, studying the Bible for many years, decades, and I heard this, like, I never heard that before. So first thing you do is, okay, let's look at all the major commentaries on the words of Jesus here in Matthew or in elsewhere where he says this, especially the ones that are strong in Jewish background, especially ones like I have a multi-volume German commentary that the whole thing it does is give Jewish background. And that's it. And I never found it anywhere. I never found anywhere that the Feast of Trumpets was known as the feast where no one knows the day or the hour. So then I went into rabbinic study. Now, the reason I went to the commentaries first, because that's easier. Where am I going to look in rabbinic literature? I mean, it's so vast and massive. Where am I going to find this reference? But I searched every way that I could. Then I asked some traditional rabbis who've been learning this stuff their entire lives and who know the material inside out cold. I mean, brilliant guys. And I said, have you ever heard that Yom Teruah, Feast of Trumpets, or what later becomes the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, have you ever heard that that is known as the feast where no one knows the day or the hour? Or this idea of the feast held the first day of the month that no one knows the day or the hour? And they said, no, never once heard it. So somebody came up with it. I don't know who, I don't know how, but it's an internet myth. And that's the myth that we were dispelling. Now, will he actually come back on that day that literally corresponds to the Feast of Trumpets? Could be. In other words, he could come any day potentially, but it would be interesting because that would be the one that would be predicted. The fellow who wrote 88 Reasons Why Jesus is Coming in 88, that book was coming out like predicted Jesus was coming, whatever it was, September 12th of 1988. And here, one more research assignment for Chris and Kai. When was Rosh Hashanah in 1988? So anyway, Debbie, someone asked me, let's say it was September 12th, 1988, Jesus is coming back, according to this book. Why? Because that's Feast of Trumpets that year, and we know he's coming back on that day. Someone asked me, you're going to read the book? I said, I'll read it on September 13th, at which point we would have allegedly been raptured and been out of here. And my point was, it's not going to happen. I can guarantee you these predictions are not real. So the September 13th, I'll read it, at which point it won't be relevant anymore. 1988, boys. 1988. The book was 88 Reasons Why Jesus is Coming in 1988. The very sincere gentleman who wrote it then put out a new edition in 1989, 89 Reasons Why He's Coming in 89. Seriously. And then, thankfully, not come up with another edition after that. Anyway, Debbie, glad to answer your question. God bless and thank you for the call. Yes, so when was it? Rosh Hashanah, 1988. And let's just see if I get it before. No, I'll let them do it. Whatever. It's in my memory. It was September 12th or 13th. The reason I remember that is not because I remember when it fell each day of the year, but because I was asked about that. So let's just see here. Okay, you got to make it really big, guys, on my screen. Oh, come on. Did I let you down or not? No, I did not. The memory's still working. Yeah, September 12th. He predicted that Jesus was coming back September 12th of 1988. And by the way, that book sold by hundreds of thousands. And I remember the guy who wrote it lived in Little Rock, Arkansas, and he said there are prophetic words about Little Rock and the significance. So somebody in Little Rock had figured it out. Very sincere. I don't know the guy at all. Don't know what happened to him, but I don't think he did it as a money-making ploy. I think he literally thought he figured it out. And that's why when I was asked, are you going to read the book, 88 Reasons Why Jesus is Coming in 1988, I said, I'll read it on September 13th, because that was one day after his prediction. You know, when I was first saved and after a few years and I saw a lot of the prophetic speculation, I said, you know, someone's going to write a book, you know, why Jesus is coming in the 1970s. And then they're going to have to put out the second edition, why he's coming in the 1980s. And then the third edition, why he's coming in the 1990s. I mean, I joked about it because I saw the prophetic speculation. I've told people for many years, if you're going to keep a prophetic calendar, keep it in pencil. Someone wrote to me this week, a solid pastor, and said, this brother's got great prophetic insight. He believes we've just entered now the 70th week of Daniel. And we've got 7 years left in world history. And I said, I'm not going to even watch a half second of it. Not a possibility for many reasons. So I understand Scripture. In any case, as we do get closer, we will know the times and the seasons. And Paul says in 1 Thessalonians 5, because we're children of the light, that day will not overtake us as a thief.